Good morning, everyone, friends from the media. Welcome to today's press briefing. The Chief Executive will first speak before answering questions. Because of the epidemic, please keep your masks on and keep your social distance. We'll now hear from the Chief Executive. Friends from the media, Hong Kong people, good morning. Yesterday, I myself, with the principal officials, EXCO and LegCo members, got vaccinated. So far, I have not heard any adverse reaction. As you can see, I feel really good. I don't feel any pain at the injection site. I'm glad to hear that as at 9 a.m., that is from midnight to 9 a.m., there are altogether 42,000 people from the 5 priority groups that have already made an appointment online to get inoculated at the 5 community vaccination centers. Starting from this Friday and 2 weeks from that, they will receive the vaccination. As there is limited places in the general outpatient clinic of the hospital authority, well, I learned that all the places of the 18 GOPCs have been fully booked, but there are still places at the 5 community vaccination centers. So you can still try to get an appointment. The government will continue to closely monitor the situation. I believe that the first batch of the second type of vaccine, that is Fosun Pharma, BioNTech, will arrive shortly. We will start preparatory work. We will assist private clinics to make available this type of vaccines for the general public. I've already answered questions in this regard. I don't have much to say as my opening remark. Let's take questions. Please put your hand up and identify yourself and the organization. I'm from Now TV. I'd like to ask about the statement made by Mr. Xia Baolong. He asks for the electoral system to be amended. Previously, you said that you would not put yourself in harm's way to start an electoral amendment, but now would you put yourself in harm's way to do what the central authorities asked you to do? You have said that you will forge favorable conditions to start a constitutional reform, but now you see that the central authority can't wait, and they have started to take a move to get the constitutional reform started. Well, you said that 42,000 people have signed up, but there are 2.4 million people who are eligible for the vaccination. So the sign-up rate is only 1.75%. Do you think that is a low rate? Are you happy with this figure? Is it because people are poorly informed about the program, or they don't have confidence in the vaccine? Well, you'll have to save time for other reporters. As I've said, the online booking system started at midnight. As at 9 a.m., it's been only 9 hours, and in these 9 hours, most people were sleeping. Within such a short time, there are still quite a number of people who have made an appointment online. I do feel that they can't wait. We're talking about 42,000 people. It is quite a large number. The success of the vaccination program hinges on the support of the public. We will continue our work on the education and publicity front to disseminate information to the public so that they will learn about the merits of getting vaccinated. We will have to continue with our work even though it is hard. We can't just disseminate information. We have to fight against smearing and untruthful report in the community. as I could see yesterday, there would be some untruthful reports, and it was reported on the internet that we did not get inoculated with Sinovac. It was a different type, saying that we were not confident about the Sinovac vaccines either. Swiftly, we have dispelled this misunderstanding. We have clarified the truth. Such information, these untruthful information, usually would go viral very quickly, and some people would choose to believe it. And say, for example, in the second half of 2019, there has been a lot of rumors flying around on the internet. Some of them are very skillfully crafted to make people believe them. We will be on our guard. We will monitor the situation round the clock. As soon as we spot any untruthful reports, we will swiftly clarify it. The vaccination will not just protect yourself, it will also protect others. This is crucial to help Hong Kong get out of the epidemic situation. I don't have to repeat to you the advantages of getting vaccinated. Since the 7th day of the Chinese New Year, we have relaxed certain social distancing measures. We see that economic activities have somewhat resumed. Some businesses could pick up their business again. In relation to what Mr. Xia said yesterday, it was crystal clear. We have reached a stage where the central authority would have to take action to address the situation, including electoral reform. Director Xia has given us a review of what happened in the past 20 years. Every time there has been something controversial that happened, there would be some people who are rather hostile towards the central authorities. I remember Mr. Xia said that back in 2003, when the central authority would like to get us to legislate for Article 23, and then there was the national education. Afterwards, there was the illegal occupation of Central, and then afterwards there was the riot in Mong Kok, and then the anti-extradition bill. I can understand that the central authorities are very concerned. They do not want the situation to deteriorate further in such a way that one country, two systems cannot be implemented, so they have to take action. That is the case for national security and our constitutional system. In relation to forging favorite conditions, whether it is I who do it or the central authorities that do it, it is beside the point. We need determination and courage to right the wrong and to set the right course.
The lady in the middle.
Secretary Patrick Nip said Hong Kong government is studying legislation to prohibit insulting public officials. What do you think of this effort? Could it restrict the free speech of Hong Kong residents? Thank you.
First of all, we are not in a so-called very mature stage of considering a legislation in that respect. But it has been the aspiration of many of my frontline officers. It's not just police officers, but many public officers in the front line. In recent years, they have been intimidated, threatened, and insulted in carrying out their duties. And this is no good for a civic society. So there have been suggestions in the Legislative Council that the government should seriously look into enacting a piece of legislation to prohibit or to control that sort of behavior. But as I said, we have a lot of competing demands on our plate, so to speak. I have already outlined earlier this month, there are 5 important areas that the government needs to legislate within the current term of a Legislative Council, which is about a few months. So I would say that this is not one of the pieces of legislation that has been put at the very high priority. But one day, if we were to legislate, I think we will be very careful in striking the needed balance. Yes, the basic law protects and upholds rights of individuals, including freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly. But as many court cases have made it very clear, these rights and freedoms are not without limitations. So when they undermine another person's right, then of course something needs to be done. So there have to be a very delicate and very serious balancing act to be done if one were to consider such a piece of legislation. But at the moment, we have not reached that stage.
Last question this morning. On the right-hand side, the reporter in gray. Good morning. I'm from Oriental Daily, Mrs. Lam. Now, from the central government's perspective, well, members of the judiciary have to be patriotic. However, there have been cases where judges have been challenged or queried as to whether they are patriotic enough. So what we do, are we going not to appoint non-permanent judges from other jurisdictions in the future? Now, in the past, patriots were regarded as those who love Hong Kong, but now they cannot be against the central government. Does that mean that the Hong Kong Alliance, members of the Hong Kong Alliance, cannot hold any public office in Hong Kong? And what will you do to ensure that the next generation will not be against the CCP? About 50 Democrats who took part in the primaries being challenged. Does that mean that they can no longer take part in elections? Now, if people from their sector would really like to take part in politics, what is your advice to them? Well, the replies to your all 3 questions will be along this line. We will act in accordance with the law. Hong Kong is a place where we act in accordance with the law, and the Hong Kong government would also govern Hong Kong in accordance with the law. This is the full recognition and approval of the central government. The most important piece of legislation is the Constitution. Hong Kong is an inalienable part of the CPG, of the PRC. So the Constitution is very important for implementing one country, 2 systems. And another important piece of legislation is the Basic Law. For the judiciary, we have a very clear provisions of the Basic Law, and to ensure that we have independent judiciary and we have the right of final appeal in Hong Kong. Appointment of judges to the judiciary have got very clear provisions in the Basic Law. Given that the Basic Law is a very important piece of legislation to ensure an independent judiciary, I don't see how it can be affected. With regard to our demands on Democrats, patriots, if you refer to Article 104 of the Basic Law, now in an oath, judges are required to pledge allegiance to the Basic Law and be loyal to the Hong Kong SAR. As regards how these provisions are going to be implemented, well, you will know very soon, because we've got a very important piece of legislation, and that is what I referred to earlier on. That is the 5 priority areas for legislation, and that is about oath-taking and also the consequences of breaking the oath, assumption of office. Now, this is very important with regard to the interpretation of the NPCSC in 2016 in relation to Article 106. Now, after the Lunar New Year, we're going to introduce a bill on this. You'll be able to find your answer there, what is meant by being loyal and to uphold. Members of the community still have the right to stand in election and to take part in polling. So it all depends on the law to be dealt with by the central authority on elections, and we need local legislation to implement that. Thank you.